My name is Donna Davis, and I'm here with Metallica, the hot new heavy metal band from LA. And let's have them start with their name and what they do in the band. And let's start with you.
James Hetfield, rhythm guitar and vocals.
Lars Ulrich, drums and bongs.
Dave Mustaine, lead guitar. Cliff Burton, bass guitar.
There was, obviously, pre-internet and all that stuff, there was a classified ads newspaper in the greater LA area that you could get at 7-Elevens called The Recycler. And there was a very small, you had to really know where to look for it in The Recycler, musicians seeking bands and bands seeking musicians. Right. And I put an ad in there. It was free, by the way, it was very cool, for a drummer looking for other musicians to start a band. And I put a couple of sort of obscure new wave of British heavy metal bands in there, like Diamond Head and Tigers Pantang and, I don't know, Witchfinder General or whatever. And there were a lot of people that were calling and say, like, heavy metal, like, you mean like Kansas and Styx and, you know, and, you know, it's like that, you know, like, you know, yeah. So a guy named Hugh Tanner showed up one day and he said, can I bring a friend of mine along? And this very shy, introverted, very awkward kid came with him, tall, skinny, and his name was James Hetfield, and we sort of had a jam together, the three of us. Nothing much happened. It was just, we didn't quite connect, but there was something, you know, because this Hugh Tanner guy was sort of the front line, but there was something about this James guy that I felt the kinship to. I called up James Hetfield and I said, listen, let's give it a shot. We'll leave this Hugh Tanner guy out of it. And then James and I connected, and I played him all the singles that I collected in England.
Lars had this drum kit. It was 10 different colors, one cymbal. He hit it, it kept falling over.
Finally, he sits down, and he's just like, I'm going, you sure this guy played drums before?
You know, a word that was used a lot at that time was the word posers. You know, a lot of poser bands and a lot of, you know, sort of very radio-friendly hard rock that was played on, you know, the radio, KLOS and so on. And so we wanted to try to do a European kind of almost dirtier, punkier type of hard rock thing that Motorhead and Iron Maiden and these bands were playing.
I answered an ad. It was an ad in the Recycler paper, and it said, looking for a lead guitar player that likes Motorhead, Saxon. And I called up this guy, and he goes, hello? And I said, hello. Calling about the ad in the newspaper. And we just started talking about bands.
After hello, I don't think I said anything for like the next 10 minutes. It was just going blah, 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 blah.
And every band that I would say, he would go, you know? I said, yeah, I like Budgie. Fuck, you know Budgie? Fuck, man, you know Motorhead?
So I go to audition for this band, and I took my amps and everything, and I plugged in, and I'm warming up.
He had this shrieking lead sound that would cut through any soundproofing. Everything just was exploding out of everywhere of him.
I said, well, are we gonna audition? And they said, no, you got the job.
That was easy.
We figured that if we covered all these songs by all these obscure bands from England that nobody had ever heard of, then we could go up and play and people would think that they were originals because nobody knew them, obviously.
Great pre-internet.
And so we sort of, yeah, so we learned a set of cover songs. After we were out playing and kind of getting our chops together, then slowly we started writing our own material.
Well, the first songs that we wrote, there was only two people writing. I had my songs that were done, and James had his songs that were done. The first record I played on with Metallica had Hit the Lights. We got a chance to put out a new version of that, and I just figured, you know what, if I'm gonna solo on this, I'm gonna solo like a motherfucker. And that's how I made my name in the metal world, was on that first Metallica track. From there on, it was just us building Metallica. And it's funny, when I look back at that period, you know, we all kind of thought we were all great in our own right, but I think probably out of the four of us in the beginning, the Young Metal Attack, the Metal Up Your Ass lineup, I think Ron McGovney was probably the most grounded of all of us. You know, I still know where I stand in the whole process, but you know, Ron was really reliable, really a dependable bass player. Most bass players, you know, that's you hope they're like that, and he was.
Ron was totally got in because we needed a bass player, and the bass player, you know, we auditioned about 3 bass players, and none of them were working out at all. And I lived with Ron there, so you know, what the fuck? He's a bass player. Let's do it, you know.
First gig was March 14th of 1982 at a little club called Radio City in Anaheim, California. And right now, it was in a little strip mall, and next door was a club called Woodstock. So we ended up playing Woodstock later, but Radio City was our first gig, and you know, we go hit the lights, bum, 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 and then Dave breaks 2 strings on his guitar, no other backup. So he's sitting there changing the strings, and we're just sitting there like, oh, dun, 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 dun. What are we
You had
gonna
to
do?
stop?
Yeah, we stopped. It's like, what are we gonna do now? We're just gonna sit here and then sit there and wait for him to tune it back up.
How many people were there?
Maybe about 40, 50,
Oh, that's
something
not
like
bad.
that. Yeah, but I mean, most of them were, you know, comps from us. You know,
Right,
they're all
friends,
our friends. Yeah.
How did you get that gig?
I think we just went over there with a demo, and they just put us in there in any slot. It was like probably a Monday night, you know, something like that. But yeah, it wasn't really good.
When I was 16 years old and hanging out with, you know, all these other guitar players, we had found this place called the International Cafe in Berkeley, and they would let us in. We were underage, and they would also sell us beer.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we would go there all the time. There was always bands playing there. One night we went there, and there's this band called Easy Street that was playing, and I was checking them out, me and my friends, and it looked like they were a cover band. And so they started to play all these cover songs, and I noticed that the bass player was this red-haired freak who's just like was doing this slow motion headbang, but it wasn't called headbanging back then.
Right.
It was just like this slow motion thing. I was thinking, that guy's nuts.
His band Trauma came to play at the Troubadour, and Brian Slagle from Metal Blade had invited us to go watch them. So we were all sitting there watching them, and I'm like, well, you know, kind of music's not my kind of thing.
You know, there was some stuff on there that was okay. I didn't think Trauma was a great band, but the bass playing was obviously something to take notice of.
2 or 3 years later, I'm with Paul Bailoff. We go to the Stone, and who do I see in Trauma? The same fucking bass player playing the same way, but now he has a wah pedal, and his sound is completely different. And I remember saying to Bailoff, that guy is making this fucking band.
You know, it was me and James and Lars, and all of a sudden Cliff starts going into this solo, and they're just like looking at him with their eyes are wide open, and I'm looking at them, and they're looking at him, and I'm like, yep, this is the guy, this is it, I mean, so I kind of knew right at that point, I'm like, yep, this is the guy they're going to go after. I could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just a thrashing, you know, head banging, crazy, awesome bass player.
What did you think of him?
I thought he was awesome too. He's doing stuff that I can never do, you know.
Right.
So as soon as I saw their reaction, you know, I kind of knew. I kind of knew, and you know, I played several gigs after that with them, and they never actually told me, hey, you know, we're gonna get, you know, we want to get this guy, you know. I kind of heard through the grapevine, but I already knew who it was gonna be. And I remember one time playing in San Francisco, and Cliff was there watching us, and he was standing there out in the rain. And I asked him, hey, I'm like, hey man, do you want to ride? Because he was standing, he was soaking wet. He's like, no, I'm cool, you know. But you know, I was gonna give him a ride back to wherever he wanted to go. But you know, I knew he was gonna be the guy. Mm-hmm. Before that, we played a show in Long Beach, and I had just gotten that Washburn bass, and I had a Ibanez Roadster bass as my old one as a backup, and that bass disappeared. It never it disappeared from the show, and find out later that, you know, somebody might have had it stolen for money. So that was a big deal. Things were disappearing from my house, and then that whole beer thing on my bass.
Dave was sitting there drinking, and my bass was on a guitar stand, and he decided to take a whole beer and just pour it right into the pickups on my bass. Just down the whole thing in there. I didn't know anything about it. Go plug it in. About blew me across the room. Shocked the hell out of me. I told Dave, look, you guys get the F out of my house. James, get out. You're going to have to leave. I mean, that's it. I can't take it anymore.
I was like, you know, you guys just need to get out. I'm done with it. I mean, this didn't have to go down like this.
Right,
you know,
right. You think they're trying to push you out or something?
Yeah, it didn't have to go down like this. All you had to do was say, "Hey, we found a guy," you know.
Yeah.
And I would have been, yeah, awesome, great, you know, good luck to you. But it didn't go down that way, and I'm sorry it didn't.
He was always kind of the outsider, but
Oh yeah, you can see in a lot of pictures. He just
it's like three guys and then one, you know.
Yeah, he'd sit there and look at you, going, "What are you doing?" You know.
Why are you making a face?
Yeah. He was the outcast.
But that was never my role.
Well, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, it was never my role to be the long-term.
And did you know that at the time?
I knew that, but you know, you kind of put it in the back of your mind because you keep playing shows and you're learning new songs and you're playing, and you know, you're playing all these gigs. You're going to San Francisco, and then you know, you see him play, and I'm like, well, oh yeah, I'm not going to be. Yeah, that wasn't what I was going to do. You know.
And you say that because your skill level wasn't at the same as theirs, or your desire or passion, or?
Yeah, I guess. Well, kind of both, I guess, because I wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. I wanted to ride dirt bikes in the desert all the time. That's what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, I remember I'd be out at Glamis, out in the sand dunes, and I'd be riding. I'm like, man, it's so good to get away from those guys. You know, this is what I want to do. I want to be out on the road. You know, I want to be away from that. I don't want the fighting. I don't want the arguing. I don't want the bickering. You know, this is just like a relationship. You know, I mean, it could be male, female. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, I don't need this. I don't want to be in that. But, you know, I didn't ever, my whole thing was never to be a rock star. It was never my intention. I was just helping James out.
I'm glad that Metallica got Cliff, and I think that Ron McGovney is too, but I really think he should have continued pursuing music because of what to me looked like he had a future.
So, how'd you get Metallica?
He called me for about 6 months, and finally I decided that was the thing to do.
It was a hip scene, huh?
Well, Trauma got a bit boring.
Yeah. That was a pretty good tune on Metal Massacre, though.
Yeah, but they started to change, you know.
Yeah.
Like, let's be commercial so everyone will like us.
Those guys put out anything after that?
I doubt it. Very seriously.
So give a hand to the major rager here, the new bass player, Cliff Burton.
We had rehearsed for the first time. You knew there was something there was a spark, because it just seems like my playing was able to really stand out from the drums and start to line up more with James, and that the drums and the bass started to have their thing, but that there was also this weird kind of like a connector of some sort where Cliff kind of connected with us and made it all work. Because I didn't really connect with bass players in the beginning with my playing. I hadn't played that much with other people.
And then literally like 3 weeks later, Bailoff calls me up and says, guess who's in Metallica now? Trauma bass player. I'm like, no! Oh my God, they're gonna be fucking so much better.
The one thing that I remember most was the day that the Mechanics became the Four Horsemen. And we were at the rehearsal building, which was a garage at Mark Whitaker's house that we turned into a jam room, hung carpet inside, and we played there. And I went in there, and we'd been listening to Lynyrd Skynyrd because Lynyrd Skynyrd was one of Cliff's favorite bands. We're playing the Mechanics, and Lars goes, "Man, we need to add this fucking slow part, man." I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, well, why would you put a slow part in Mechanics, you know? Because I wrote it after watching that movie with Charles Bronson, the killer that was called The Mechanic, right?
Oh, okay.
And I worked at a gas station, so I kind of melded the two ideas together. And so I thought, all right, and I played dun 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 dun. I'll turn up. Here, come on, y'all. The muscle shows they love the governor.
Sweet Home Alabama.
Right, so Lars goes, "That's brilliant." And I felt like saying, well, the Van Sant seemed to think so. Or maybe Rossington or Collins, one of those guys, whoever wrote the song. So he left it in the song, and I thought, oh my God, Lars. It was funny to me.
Dave was pretty much a Jekyll and Hyde.
When I would go to rehearsal, I would leave the dogs there to watch the drugs. And one day I took one of the dogs with me, and she put her paws up on Ron McGovney's car and scratched the front panel.
The pit bull started jumping on my car, scratching it all up. And I hear James yelling at Dave saying, "Hey, get your freaking dogs off of Ron's car."
And James kicked the dog. And that's where we went, "Don't do this, oh, don't do this or you're going to get fired."
And I hear James yelling at Dave, and all of a sudden Dave just came unglued. "Don't you say this kind of crap about my dogs." And they're nose to nose.
"Shut up or I'm going to hit you." And then the bass player goes, "You hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And then James goes, "You hit him, you're going to have to hit me first." And I said, "You win, James." And I belted him in the mouth.
Knocked him across the room. He wasn't even expecting it.
And the bass player jumped me and I flipped him.
He threw me against the wall like a big judo throw. And we just got into, "Get out of here, you're out of the band, you know? All right, F you, blah, blah, blah." And he goes in, packs up all his stuff, leaves, comes back the next day. "Can I be back in the band?" You go, "All right, okay, you're back in the band."
There's two kinds of drunks. There's happy drunks and there's violent drunks. And I would get violent.
He just went like totally psycho on some people in this restaurant and almost caused this big fight.
We started to see that he was on the road to killing possibly all of us.
But even with Dave, just like I think deep inside we always thought that it wouldn't last. Fucking a couple of things happened and it became too much. The guy couldn't control himself under various situations where he had to, and it just didn't. On a long-term basis, in a couple of years or something, it could, become real problems. So we decided then that whenever there was a good opportunity to get rid of him, that we would do it because we had a whole schedule lined up of gigs and the album and stuff, right?
I don't know. I probably was destined to leave before that because of, the word destiny and the fact that there was just so much talent and so much personality between the four of us. I don't know that we could have survived. There was destined to be some kind of an explosion at some point. Leaving Metallica, a lot of the things that they did, watching them have their success, it could have been anything. They could have quit metal and started making Twinkies, and I would have been jealous because we were friends, and then all of a sudden we're not friends anymore. And all I know is that I want to keep doing what we're doing together because we make people happy. And the four of us get to drive around like we're something special. And I've never felt special before in my life until now, where we have this guitar, we've got this band, And now I feel like I'm somebody.
Dave was all speed. He had no feeling. He had no pull-offs. He had no, brilliant things. He'd try and get really, some
But it got too
augmented
complicated.
things, and then it just sounded really awful. He's real fast. He's real talented, though. I doubt he's gonna win. Playing
for girls,
chicks,
to tell all his friends. Dave would only play, when he had to. He'd never sit down and just jam. Or it wasn't like he played guitar because he wanted and felt like playing guitar. It was more like an excuse to fucking show off.
You guys like it heavy?
So the last gig we did with Dave was at the Rods 2 weeks ago tonight. And then we fucked around on Sunday. Monday morning we woke him up.
All I remember was waking up and then being circled around me, and I just looked up.
Wake up, Dave,
Get up, you're out of the band. And I said, what, no warning, no second chance?
It was almost like execution style. We just walked in, woke him up, fired him, grabbed him in his shit and took him down to the bus stop, and the whole thing took, 45 minutes.
It does sound pretty bad, wake up, bye. But it really had to happen that way.
I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the back of James's pickup when they drove me to the bus station, and I looked at James, and he was weeping.
We were brothers up to that point, and then something had pulled us apart, and we knew it had to continue that way, so it was emotional for all of us.
I'd seen my dad in a coma and dying, and this was probably more harmful to me than anything I'd ever been through.
And I think that probably was the most shocking and hardest thing to tolerate or to accept at the end, was that when the band stopped, I've kind of felt like I stopped. I know that's not true, but what's a young kid at the time to think? I had no mentors. I had no one talking into my life and saying, you're going to get through this and you're going to be so much happier for it.
At that time we already had the guy Kirk Hammett from Exodus in mind.
He had a tape and everything he was studying.
Yeah. But we didn't know when we would be able to fit him in the schedule, and then we came out here and sat down and told Johnny that this was what was going on, and then he said that Kurt flew in the same night from San Francisco.
So Exodus is from the Bay Area as well?
Yeah, they're good friends of ours in San Francisco.
So you knew him for...
Oh yeah, we played, I think, three gigs with him over the last 6 months, and we hang out with them, and they're good. They're like the only other, kind of as intense metal as we are. Yeah. They're not as tight and experienced and shit like that, but they're, in the right direction. Have you heard any of their material?
No.
I think that the lineup that we have happening now, like when me and James first got this band together, it was always like fucking Ron and Dave. It just wasn't happening like, when you thought ahead 5 years, you couldn't picture any of them still in the band, and now none of them are in the band. But right now, I think we're fairly confident that this lineup is gonna, stay tight.
And then, literally 4 weeks later, I get the phone call to join Metallica.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I was so stoked was because I would get to finally meet this guy who I saw in Easy Street and in Trauma, and just find out what he's all about. I was more curious about him as a person than anything else.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I first went out there to audition for the band, Cliff was the first person I met, because James and Lars were still sleeping. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, and Cliff had been up for a while. And so I hung out with Cliff and figured out that, he was a pretty cool guy, very level-headed, very comfortable in his own skin, even though he was just such a fucking freak to me and so weird and different. He had a confidence about him that you can tell just right away, just right off the bat. And then over the course of that week, I saw him reading a H.P. Lovecraft book that was a module for Dungeons and Dragons.
Really?
Yeah, and I had that same book because I was into Dungeons and Dragons and I was into H.P. Lovecraft. So I had the same book. I said, bro, I have that book. You're into it. He goes, oh yeah, I love it. H.P. Lovecraft. And I like zombies too. I'm like, bro, I'm a horror guy. I fucking love zombies too. And him and I bonded.
All right, we're gonna turn it over now to the newest member, Mr. Kirk Hammett. He's gonna melt your face with his guitar.
The very first night that I played with him, this quote-unquote audition, Lars kept on looking at James, and James kept on looking at Lars, and they kept on smiling, and I was going, what's up with these guys? Are they in love with each other or something? What's going on? But I later found out that they were so happy that the other person playing guitar was not their old guitar player. And they were so happy that he is out of the picture, and I was in the picture with a lot of potential and a lot of possibilities.
Well,
They saw all that stuff even before I saw it, you know? They never really told me that I was in the band. I mean, I figured it out when Lars said, okay, in about 3 weeks, we're going to go up to upstate New York, and we're going to record our first album. And I was like, okay. And then I realized I must be in the band because they were doing the album.
Do you fly out to New York to audition, though?
Yes.
And then you go back home?
Yes.
And then they call you and say, hey, we're going to do a record?
No.
Okay.
No. So I fly out to New York. We play a bunch of shows in New Jersey, New York, you know, that whole area. And then we had to play shows because we were fucking broke.
Oh, wow.
And we needed to play shows to fucking eat.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we were on Megaforce Records, and we were the first artist on Megaforce Records.
Yeah, it was basically out of a record store.
Yeah, you know, there was no like capital or like, you know, fucking financial resources or.
It's not a record
anything.
company. It's a fan who's actually cool and is like putting his like own money up for a record.
Yeah, and so, you know, 10. I can't remember if it was 10 grand or 15 grand was raised, and with that money we had to record our album and also live. And so we were doing that, and then we went up to upstate New York, and we were all just living in one house, and then we recorded Kill 'Em All, and then Cliff and I took a Greyhound bus back from New York back to San Francisco. It took 3 fucking days.
Whoa!
And
nonstop on the bus?
Yeah, nonstop on the freaking bus. And then Lars and James came back like a week later with the fucking, you know, a cassette of the album.
Wow.
We have a debut album out on Megaforce Records. It's called Kill 'Em All. We're glad to kill all you tonight. Who wants this fucker?
And we all made copies, and then we were home for like, you know, like maybe a couple, 2-3 weeks, and then we went back out on the East Coast again and started playing a lot more shows because we had to exist. And then it looked like we were going to be able to go to Europe for our first European tour.
It wasn't like this guy Kurt, I'll tell you, man, he wakes up in the morning, he just starts playing guitar. I mean, he just plays all the time. The guy plays.
I did a lot of soul searching on the way home. Did I want to play guitar? Did I want to keep doing this? What am I going to do? I got it. I'm going to make a band that's more metal than Metallica. And I need to come up with a name that's more metal than a band that has metal in their name. So what can I come up with? And I just figured, well, I'll wait for that for a little bit. And I started writing lyrics. And I was in the bus and I looked down on the ground, there's a piece of paper there. And Alan Cranston said that the Arsenal of Megadeth cannot be rid. And I thought, Arsenal of Megadeth, that's a great name. That's a great name for a song.
I was wondering, how come there's no pictures of Dave Mustaine?
Because he's not in the band.
No, okay, Dave. Hang up. Hey, Dave, we
No,
told you about
finish
calling up the radio station.
Finish your question, man.
I know that, but when I know that some of the songs were written by him, and
Well, you know,
partially by him.
you got to credit people where credit is due, but if someone's not in your band, you generally don't put their picture on your album.
Shoot for the little dick. He only wrote a little dog.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, put a,
Hello?
With a picture of his nose.
So what happened with them? I mean, I was just curious.
I don't know, man.
We sent him home pretty
You know
much.
what happened to him?
Causing Megadeth. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
he has a band.
Megadeth.
Megadeth.
From left to right.
Dave Ellison. Chris Poland. Dave Mustaine.
Gar Samuelson. Drums.
Drums. Guitar and vocals. Guitar. Bass guitar and background vocals. When I came back from New York back in 1983, I met Dave Ellison. He lived upstairs. Or no, I lived upstairs and he lived downstairs. Yeah, I just moved to California. But anyways, he played a lot of really noisy all the time, and I was yelling out the window for him to shut up, and I guess he thought I was cool enough to help him find cigarettes, and him and his roommate came up and asked me if I knew where to get cigarettes, and we're in Hollywood, and I felt like saying, listen, man, go to the corner. There's probably at least 100 cigarette shops around there. But then we started hanging out together, and we decided that we should dump his roommate and get a band together, and there you have it, the beginning of Megadeth.
It was Dave Ellison and Dave Mustaine, and then how did Chris Poland come into the picture?
I went down there and I played around, and they said, you know, you want to try rehearsing, and I learned some of the songs, and it was real high energy. It was basically what me and Gar were doing before, except metal. You know, every song we were, like when we go through the set, you know, you're like praying for the end of the set and if you're gonna make it or not. And that's, you know, the way we like it, so. But it's, you know, we just got together. Gar said, you want to come down and try it? And I did, and here I am.
Me and Chris previously had played together for about 4 years, at least.
In
4
Dunkirk?
years. I've been playing with Gar for like 13 years. Gar was asleep 9 of the years. I mean, like, me and Gar learned how to play at his house in a back room for years and years. And then we had bands back in New York. And then we moved out here and had a fusion band called the New Yorkers. And that was 5 years of starving. So, like, when these guys said, you want to join a band and starve, I was already starving. So I said, well, sure. What the hell? So then right when Chris joined, we just like done our combat deal, and we went in after about a month of rehearsal with Chris and recorded the first album, Killing Is My Business.
Yeah, it was all pretty fast.
Yeah, it all happened real fast. The recording and everything was real fast until the release date took a long.
So Mustaine had all the songs written by then?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For the first 5 albums, right?
No, only for about 2 more.
Oh, okay.
The thing that bothered me the most was I had all my music and I left it behind and I said, don't use my music. And of course they did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they used it on the first record, on the second record. There's parts of my music on a song on the third record. All the solos on the first record are mine, except that they're just performed by Kirk.
What do you think of Megadeth? I just heard some last night that sound like the Four Horsemen, and it's just switched the title of the Mechanics.
Oh yeah, that was the original title of that song, with Dave Mustaine's lyrics and everything. I don't think about them too much, to be honest with you.
He seems to have a cocky image. Is that
Well,
so?
Dave, he's a pretty cocky Dave talks a lot. He talks a lot about us and about other people. He thinks I suck, and the band sucks.
No, I mean, I like James more than Lars. I think everybody does, and I have no problems with James. You know, don't really like Kirk because he got my job, but you know, I nailed his girlfriend before I left. So
Whoa! The first time that I heard how long that they allowed Kirk to do his solo, I thought,
this is supposed to be me.
It has a tendency to make me biased towards what he's doing. So I really can't listen to what he's doing with much of an open mind because he's too busy talking shit about everyone.
He runs his mouth and we run our business.
Enough said.
Just like my friend.
What?
There's always some comment about Metallica and Megadeth. Is that something that's always coming from the interviewer, or is it something that you like to talk about?
We don't bring it up. You know what? I think that there's like, especially in America, there's a few magazines, I won't mention any names, but this whole Metallica-Megadeth feud is gotten so blown out of proportion, and it's, I think that, I mean, they're a good band. They do their thing.
They do their thing.
They do their thing, man. But we're our own band. We do our own thing, and I think at the beginning, a lot of people thought maybe we were riding on the coattails of Metallica's success with him, but now,
we just
3 records
right
later,
back.
yeah, 3 records later, I think we proved ourselves. You know, enough said.
The first record didn't do that much for me. I mean, I respected it and stuff like that, but I was like a really big fan of Peace Sells. The second record I thought was an awesome heavy metal record at that time. And I listened to it a lot. And even though I certainly didn't tell anybody at the time, I was actually, I guess, secretly kind of proud of the work that he'd done because he had stepped up to the plate. I certainly didn't tell James.
Another factor is the fact that we were doing it long before a lot of the other ones, and I think those that start things have an advantage over those that follow. After we finished the complete European tour, we'll go to Japan. Well, first we'll go to America and do some Canadian and Eastern United States gigs for about 10 days, and then go to Japan and do about a week over there, and then possibly Australia or South America, but that's up in the air. After that, we'll go home for the holidays probably, and then start to put together the next album.
Well, the beginning of the tour was kind of tough. The beginning of any tour is tough. You gotta get yourself set in your ways. You have to get used to the road beating your ass every night.
Sorry.
The road will kick the shit out of you.
WRTN Inertia, the Midnight Metal, of course, tonight dedicating the entire show to Cliff Burton of Metallica, who died early this Saturday morning in a tragic auto accident. The tour bus of Metallica, of course, going off the road during their tour in Sweden, and just a lot of people calling up who did not know of that, and there are, on the other hand, a lot of people saying that they heard about that through the grapevine. It was early this Saturday morning that it happened. Metallica's minivan, or tour bus, whatever you want to call it, was on way to Copenhagen from a gig in Sweden, and as we have learned, the driver of the bus fell asleep and causing the van or tour bus to go off the road. As soon as the van collided and went off the road, Cliff was pinned, and they were all asleep. The whole band was asleep. The driver was driving, and Cliff was pinned in his bunk, and the rest of the members, like James, Kirk, and Lars, had abrasions. Lars broke his foot, right, and all 3 of the guys checked into a hospital and were released, I believe, this afternoon. One of Metallica's roadies, I believe it was the drum roadie, was seriously injured, and I think he is in critical condition right now. So we're gonna try and give you the latest information. The latest information out of Copenhagen, Denmark, according to Scott Ian, is that everybody in the Metallica camp is resting. Kirk Hammett was sleeping a couple hours ago. James was walking around in a very bad mood and saying Metallica is not going to go on. Now that's just because he was in that kind of a mood. You know, you can expect someone to say anything like that, but of course we're going to find out the latest information. And Lars, I believe, was just in the hotel. So as of now, Anthrax and Metallica are in Copenhagen, Denmark, in a hotel together, and we're going to bring you the latest on this tragic incident about Cliff Burton, and we're going to go to the air right now, so if we can clear up any questions.
Drinkers we went back to the hotel and just drank, you know.
I remember at 4 o'clock in the morning, I could hear James down on the street, drunk, screaming, Cliff, Cliff, where are you? And when I heard that, I just broke into tears, you know?
Mr. Jason Newsted on bass guitar.
I think it had to be extremely bittersweet for him. Like a dream come true, but I'm stepping into someone's shoes who can never be filled. It must have been very difficult. And for him and for us, it was difficult. It just truly was. And, you know, Psych 101 will tell you that all our anger, our grief and sadness got directed at him.
I mean, we were pretty young still, and I can only talk about myself during that period, but I did not know how to process it. You know, I hadn't lost someone like that under those circumstances. You know, I don't think any of us had. And so I think subconsciously we just buried a lot of stuff, and that stuff was struggling to get out.
He was an easy target, and I think there were a couple things about Jason, you know, his personality. He felt he was goofy enough to take it, which was a positive for him. I think he was such a fan, and we hated that. We hated that part. We wanted to unfan him and become
as hard as you were.
Yeah, as hard as we were. So trying to beat the fan out of him, trying to also get him to play something different, like Cliff would. You know, he played with a pick, and he would follow whatever I would do. And I remember there were times where I'd be playing, I'd just turn around so he couldn't see what I was playing, so he couldn't follow me. It's like, do whatever you want to do, you know. So, but obviously live, he fit right in. He was a great force, and you heard the bass live. So, and he wasn't afraid to step up to the mic and bark whenever he felt like it. And he would sweat. He would really sweat, and he put a lot into the live show. So that gained a lot of respect, at least I think for us, once we started touring with him.
And I think subconsciously a lot of it got escaped through the music. I mean, I honestly believe that.
Darkness imprisoning me, all that I see, absolute horror. I cannot live, I cannot die, trapped in myself, fighting my whole exhale. Rest in peace, Cliff.
It's difficult for me to comprehend that the only thing that you feel when you look back on the last 20 years is rooted in the Metallica thing.
Okay. I'll explain in as simple terms as I can, not to stultify you, but to just make it real easy. I had nothing, then I had everything, then I had nothing again. And it was okay going from nothing to everything to nothing, but then having someone stand on the back of my head and keep me underwater. It made it even harder for me. I've been erased from any involvement. The quotes that I was never meant to be in here anyways, I was just filling a spot, I was just a temporary guy, I was a fucking loser and a drunk, I got kicked out. All the horrible things that were said immediately after my firing. I agree, I should have been fired because I was dangerous because of my disease. But watching for so many years, the band continue to become successful and successful and successful, and us to never address, you know, the way that I was let go. My God, Lars, you guys woke me up and said, you know what, you're out. And I asked you, what, no warning? I said, no second chance? And you guys said, no, go. Good God, man, I didn't get a chance. And I've lived, and yeah, maybe for some people, you know, 18 years is a long time. For me, it seems like yesterday. I woke up and I look up and I see the guys that I love, that are my extended family. Gotta remember, all I had was my mom. All I had was you and James. We had dreams together. And I sold everything to join that dream. And then it ended. I've never had a chance to be able to tell you without talking to Lars, the guy in Metallica. Never talked to my little Danish friend again. You know? I remember the day you and I talked about digging a hole in fucking dirt and smoking hash through the ground. That to me is the stuff that's like, you know? And we've never had very many moments like that. Have you ever thought what I've been through?
I think I've had an awareness of the pain I caused you.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
Do you have any idea
of what I put you through?
No. What I went through. I mean, people hate me because of you. You know, I walk down the street and I hear some piece of shit say, Metallica at me, and they do that to taunt me. I mean, when I would hear Metallica on the radio, I would be like, God, I have to turn this off because I just keep thinking, I fucked up. Right. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. You know, and by no means is it done because somebody else very important is not here. Right. Do I wish it was 1982 all over again and you guys woke me up and say, hey, Dave, you know what, you need to go to AA? Yeah. I'd give anything for that chance.
I had this clear vision, which I don't know if I've ever told you, but the night where we decided to let you go, a couple of days before we let you go, and we played some show, and me and you were just sitting there, and I think we were smoking some pot and being very mellow, and I just remember I had this clear vision of just being overwhelmed with sadness and emotion about what was about to go down literally like 8 hours after that. Not saying in any way that I was not equally responsible for being part of making that decision, but at the same time feeling just an overwhelming sadness and guilt, because I really felt that when all the bullshit went away, a lot of the kind of the boasting and the He-Man and all that bullshit sort of went away, that you were a really tender person. I felt that you had this really tender side to you that I was really attracted to, or really felt comfortable with, you know what I mean? And I think that's always been there. And that's why I think I sought you out.
I'm not mad at you, Lars.
No, you're not.
You know, and I don't want anything from anybody. You know, I still have my dreams. I'm glad that James is getting help. I really am. I wish that James was here. I wish Cliff was here.
Is there any last words you want to say to everybody out there?
Metal up your ass!
Okay, thank you. This is Donna Davis, and this is Metallica.
I never had more fun with two guys in my life than drinking with James and Lars. And if I didn't have a disease where I could actually stop once I started, I would love to get together with those guys and do it all over again. I'm really looking forward to the day where we can sit down and just laugh about how, how this thing just mushroomed into this unbelievable thing. The two of us have sold more records than probably any other two bands that I know. But, I think that the world could stand to learn a lot from Metallica. They have done just about everything picture perfect.
The one thing you gotta admire about anybody who's been around for as long as he has, just the staying power is awesome. I mean, in a time frame where most bands stick around for 15 minutes or less, it's just awesome that it's been 15, 16 years for him and he's still here making records. And so you gotta always tip your hat to that.
Megadeth is Dave Mustaine, always is, always was. But the thing about Dave that is probably keeping him in the forefront and keeping him in people's psyche, so to speak, is the fact that you have this music that you want to get made and you're always finding the people who can actually get it done for you. And it's a lifelong quest, and it's so really hard to do, even on the short term. But on the long term, it's just, you get my ultimate respect for that.
Thanks, Mike.
And playing Budokan 30 years plus into the career, it's a testament to the music that, it's your music. It still sounds like the first album. I mean, what you're trying to do, it's the same thing, but in a good way. Like AC/DC has that thing that they always keep trying to do it. And it's making sense.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that needs to be said about this is he's always allowed these great people to shine in the band. And for me, it was an opportunity to get from the underground to the mainstream. There was a lot of guys who play better than me, definitely a lot of guys taller than me. But Dave gave me a chance to come in the band, and we did some really, really cool stuff together. And that kind of got me on the map, and it allowed me to get into places that I wouldn't have gone as this underground guitar player. And look at these guys that he has now doing the same thing. I mean, these guys are so incredible players, and you really need that to get his music out. And as a result, it's not only his music, but it's the music of all the members. It's, it's starting with the seed of his music, which doesn't change. Megadeth is Megadeth. You're not going to have one album that's like, well, this is the blues album or something. It's like, it's going to be Megadeth, but you get these guys on there, and they're so different from maybe there was another incarnation of Megadeth, but it's still so rooted in what Dave's original intention was, that I think that is the key to keeping in the forefront. And I just want to say thanks for having me.
Of course.
Officially say it right here.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
It really started with the kind of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction idea.
Yeah.
And, getting nostalgic.
Yeah.
And thinking, my God, look at all the people that have helped us along the way, and look who are still around.
Yeah.
Let's say thank you to them.
One of our best experiences as far as celebrating time that has passed, for sure.
29 years, Ron McGovney. Yeah! Sporting one of the original T-shirts there.
It's weird. When we brought Ron McGovney and Dave Mustaine on to play, those shows, something happened, and it really just improved our relationship with those guys tremendously, especially with Dave. After those shows, Dave's whole attitude toward us just fucking turned around. Something happened, and just our relationship with him just completely, totally changed and got much, much better. And, I think what had happened was he actually found some closure by coming up on stage and playing with us. And I remember my attitude was, Dave, play whatever you want, man. If you want to take all the fucking solos, I'll play rhythm guitar. It's no big deal to me. And I remember him looking at me going, he was just like looking at me going, okay. But I can tell that was not what he was expecting to hear from me.
Right.
And when we actually played, and I remember just like standing next to him, going up to him, like he's like ripping a solo and I'm like playing. It was a moment for the both of us. And all of a sudden, all that shit, all that fucking bad vibes, all that schism, all that shit talking didn't even fucking matter anymore. It didn't fucking matter anymore. And, as a result of it, I mean, we're all friends still.
That's wild, man.
I mean, from that point on, we went on to do the Big Four.
The Big Four,
and that was, a great thing.
And so the Big Four was kind of that thing.
Yeah.
We're all still playing after 32 years. Let's go do a gig together. I mean, why shouldn't we? Let's celebrate the fact that we're still alive and playing music that we love.
Yeah.
And, I think the other thing was the new wave of British heavy metal. That's all I ever hear about.
Yeah.
No album, the blah, blah, blah. What about the Big Four? Yeah. No one knows the Big Four. Come on, let's make it known.
Yeah.
Let's make some history here and let people know and put a mark there that Big Four was and, is a force to be reckoned with.
And he delivered the goods.
Yeah, we loved it. We had a blast.
And Mustaine and you guys are good?
Yeah, there's no reason to not be good.
Yeah,
At this point,
Yeah.
we've all friggin' fell off the wagon. We've all gone into the ditch. We've all got back on track, and we've all learned from our stuff. And at the end of the day, it's just journeys. Everyone's doing a different journey, and why would you hold a grudge with someone or vice versa?
For as far as all of us just kind of like bonding.
Yeah.
And it kind of really fucking established and really just like vindicated all of us as just people who just love this fucking music and had a passion for playing it and took that passion everywhere we went.
I have my little guy out. The other ones are.
What's his name?
Bryce. He's 3 years old. He's a little rascal. Huh?
You have other kids, all right?
Yeah, I have 3 kids and a stepson.
Because I remember having...
I have a 12-year-old named Miles.
Yeah,
9-year-old.
Miles. That's who it was.
Yeah.
I remember that little boy.
And I don't know if I told you the other day, but I told Dave that his favorite band was Megadeth for about a year. So about in 07. Huh? In 07, 08, we would every morning we got in the car and I'm taking him to school. We're listening to Megadeth.
You can't fucking violent, man. Which part? I hate you. You know how much I sacrificed?
Roberto Agustin Miguel Santiago Samuel Trujillo Veracruz Kazoo.
One.